All right. Welcome everyone to All Star Insights with Kids on First at Tuckahoe Sports Incorporated. We are definitely here and honored to meet Mr. Troy Stewart, who is a black umpire, nationally known, and trying to provide some insight in reference to the whole world of industry of umpiring. So you guys grab onto your seats because it's about to be a heck of a ride. Good to meet you, brother Stewart. Welcome to the
Good to
show.
meet you, sir. Thank you, Coach Rock. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Real quick, if I could ask you a particular question here. What got you into umpiring and how long have you been doing it?
So, ironically, funny story. When I graduated college, I played football at the University of Richmond. I came home from graduating looking for something to get involved in. And one of the gentlemen who was coaching football was also an umpire and said, "Hey, man, if you have any, affiliation with baseball, if you played it in the past, you should really get involved in umpiring. It's a great way to, stay in shape, make a little bit of money and just stay around the game." And once he said make a little bit of money, I was hooked, Coach Rock.
Okay,
That
that's
gentleman
right.
is Reese Morgan, and he is currently our rules interpreter and longtime umpire in our association as well. So that's how I got my start, and that was 1996, if you can imagine
Wow.
how long ago that was. Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely.
Wow. What level of baseball, like what level are you at now and what level were you at before? And can you talk about that transition?
Absolutely. So our association primarily works with high school baseball in the city. We also service a couple of rec leagues in the city and also some little leagues in the city as well. So we primarily do all amateur baseball. We have a couple of contracts with some of the local colleges where we step in and facilitate their games on occasion, but primarily our heart and our stamp is on the interscholastic middle school and high school baseball in the city.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. If what could let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the calls, man. Can you tell me what is the hardest call to make in baseball and why?
Man, wow. Well, it's interesting now because, given the fact that I've been doing this for 30 plus years, it's kind of shifted. It used to be, safe and out was difficult, but now calling balls and strikes for me is difficult because pitchers are growing, man, and they're able to put movement on baseballs now that, I haven't seen in quite some time. Just the art of being able to maneuver a baseball. These kids are getting really, really good. It shows that they're taking sports now has become so specialized where, there used to be a time when you played everything. And now it's getting into that avenue where guys are specifically sticking to certain sports, good or bad, and being able to hone their craft a whole lot sooner and a whole lot quicker. So strikes and balls are becoming somewhat difficult just because of the movement of the baseball, in my opinion.
Speaking about that, what are your thoughts about the ABS system, man? The whole hey, let's replay that.
It's interesting because one of the mottos that we use in our association is you just want to get the call right. It's not about how I look. It's not about, what people are going to think. You just want to get the call right because you want to keep the integrity of the game, moving in a positive trajectory. So anything that we can do that's one, not going to make the game longer, and two, that's going to get calls right, I'm all for it. Now, the number of times that these umpires get these calls wrong, sometimes seems a little weird. You know, if you got like, half of an inch of miss, that's fine. But when
Right.
you got a guy missing a call like by 2, 3 inches, that to me seems a little different. But hey, ABS is getting it right. So that's all we can ask for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for
Yeah.
that insight. What's something people assume about umpires that just isn't true?
Ironically, I think they assume that and it's funny that I'm going to say this because of how I got my start, but it feels like they think we do it just because of the money. Now, if you break down the number of hours that we put in and the amount of pressure that we receive, the money is peanuts when you really break down what we're getting per game. So I wish people would understand that there's really a love for this, especially for baseball, because as you can attest to, the number of rules and the amount of study that you have to put into this sport to actually know what you're doing is not easy. And
Right.
every rule has an addendum, and every addendum has something if or an or, and it just makes knowing this game difficult. So it is not about the money, at least not in my association stance. for sure.
Yeah, it's the hardest sport to play. People don't realize that out of any sport, it's been deemed to be the most difficult. And that's because of a lot of intricacies, a lot of
Absolutely.
details of the game. I always tell people if it wasn't for umpiring at all, we wouldn't even be able to play as players or coaches or
Absolutely.
anything. So it
Absolutely.
needs to be respected in that manner. Nowadays,
Absolutely.
I want to get your insight because I coach right now you travel ball
Hmm.
with my son for the Richmond Hornets here in Virginia. All right.
Okay.
And tell me how you handle parents in reference to discrepancies that
Yeah.
happen on the field because I've seen a lot of weird things go on in
Yeah.
reference to that from their perspective. Can you kind of talk about that and give that insight on how they should handle that?
Yeah, it's interesting because, and I think there are definitely two avenues here. Sometimes umpires they don't help themselves, right? Sometimes we umpire games with chips on our shoulders. And the true nature of why we're here is being lost in a faction of umpires. Sometimes they think, they're bigger than the game. And sometimes that's how we behave. And if and or when that occurs, I can't say that I blame a parent because I was a parent of a baseball player too. And in a situation where you're expecting a parent to behave a certain way, well, we need umpires to behave a certain way as well. Now, I'll never condone a parent going off on an umpire or being belligerent towards an umpire or assaulting an umpire, because I'm sure we've all seen the videos or heard the stories where this is happening. And, the bad part about that is this game has been played by kids since the beginning of time. And the pressure that we as parents are putting on these kids to earn a scholarship, to get drafted in the first round with Major League Baseball, the art of actually loving the game and playing the game for that reason is being lost. And because so much pressure is being put on the kids, now parents are putting pressure on umpires when the human element of this game, they expect us to be robots. They expect you to make every call right and in favor of their kid. And sometimes that just doesn't happen. Case in point, I had a game last week and Coach Rock, the game was so out of hand by the second inning, one team was ahead by 20 runs. Now, the underlying rule for umpires is you don't want to one lengthen that game to the point where the kids become even more embarrassed. They're already embarrassed that they're losing by a huge margin. So
Right.
what do? You open up the strike zone a little bit. You
Right.
make it so that the game doesn't get even more out of hand than it already is. Well,
Right.
some parents are mad that you call a strike on a kid and they're up 20 to run and the ball is a half inch below his knee. But you got to understand it's about the kid. It's not about you and what you want. We got to give grace to the kids. We have to because it's already a hard enough game. It's already hard enough.
Right.
Give grace to the kids and let the kids have fun as best that they can. And we're losing that. We're losing that. We really are.
Big time. Big time. In fact, what advice would you give players about respecting umpires in this regard?
Yeah, well, first, ironically, I would first counsel the umpires that they have to respect the kids. We're teaching these kids to do as I say, not as I do. But more and more, these kids are emulating what they see. If they see you acting a fool towards them, then hey, they may turn around and act a fool towards you. So I would like, and I've always taught my son, it doesn't matter what is said, the umpire is here and you're beneath that. So you always need to act with a modicum of respect and decorum. But as an umpire, I try my very best, Coach Rod, to be an example of what I'd like them to throw back at me. I'm not going to belittle you. I'm not going to talk down to you. I'm going to address you as I'd like you to address me. And as long as we can maintain that balance, I think we'll be in much better shape.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Shifting gears slightly, appreciate that insight in reference to how the African American crews have started to evolve more. Can you give some insight about that and how important that is to the game?
Absolutely. It's interesting because I think because especially in the inner city, because you don't have a large number of us participating in this game, it's even that much more difficult to get us to umpire the game. Coach Rock, we have been trying just short of putting advertisements in the newspaper and billboards on trees. It is a hard job getting umpired. Our turnover, especially when before COVID hit, we were in a much better position. But once COVID came and people started to think, hey, it's a matter of life or death, there are a lot of things that I'm just not going to get involved in. And we've taken a huge hit. And a couple of our neighboring umpire associations are having a difficult time maintaining roster just because folks, one, I never played baseball growing up as a kid, so I'm not really that much into it. But trying to convince somebody to get involved in a sport that number one, they don't love, and number two, they got to study to learn. And then number
Right.
three, now you tell me I got to deal with, parents hurling obscenities at me because they're right on top of me. So it is tough to convince. But for those of us that love it, like myself, I can't imagine doing anything else. And I try to articulate that to any perspectives. There's nothing like this game. Football and basketball, no disrespect, but baseball is an art form. And you really got to be about your business if you want to be good at this game, both playing it and officiating.
We agree with that, man. And when we take a look at overall, man, I want to know one of the funniest things. I got something here. What's one of
Mhm.
the funniest interactions you've had with a player or a coach?
Let's see, with the player, there was one. There was one game that I remember. And you always get kids playing this sport that either are forced by parents or forced by coaches, right? Because you've got, kids that play baseball, I mean, that play football. And in order, unfortunately, a lot of our inner city schools, they don't have enough kids to, field the baseball team. So a lot of coaches make football players play baseball, right?
Right,
Because the seasons don't intermix. So you've got time as a football player to do something in the spring to kind of keep you in shape, right?
right.
So there's this one school, they've got a kid who's a phenomenal football player, and they put him on the baseball team. And I'll never forget, the kid gets in the batter's box for the first time, Coach Rock, and an 80-mile-an-hour fastball hits right in the center of the plate. And he's looking like, Blue, they expect me to hit that? I'm like, big fella, I can't help you. But yes, the expectation is for you to hit that baseball. And he's like,
Absolutely.
yeah, Dad, that's not going to happen. I might as well go ahead and sit down now.
Absolutely.
Oh my
Absolutely.
goodness.
That's
Yeah,
hilarious. That's
it is.
hilarious.
It is.
But
They try their
that's what you
best.
call exposure to the utmost.
Absolutely, absolutely. And see what people don't realize, man. In my heart of hearts, I believe baseball is the one game that we are at a disadvantage at because you can't just pick up a baseball like you can a basketball or football, grab some guys and go out in the yard and play. You need bats, you need gloves, you need a field with proper lines, you need all of that, and it makes access to this game that much more difficult. And if you expect a kid in high school to pick up baseball and be good at it, it's not going to happen. It is not impossible. But I really believe that this is a game where you've got to start at 7 years old or 4 years old with T-ball, just so you can build up not only the skill to play it, but the mental aspect of it. Because like you said, that 80 mile an hour fastball coming at you, that is not easy. And to start at ninth grade, 10th grade, I'm expecting a lot out of you to do that. So yeah, that's my thing. You got to get in this game as young as possible to at least have a chance at being good at it.
My goodness, I'm glad you said that. It's that, and it's also transitioning from a lower level of competition and waiting so long to become a part of a travel ball competition, for example.
Yes.
So, I've been always appointed the issue of development in reference to
Yes.
players that come on a team that is advancing, and we
Hmm.
have to scale back and deal directly with players that come from and having to reset the mindset and reframe the way a player sees the game into a more of an understanding like, listen, this game is about fundamentals and mechanics. So what are your
Right.
thoughts about a child who comes into the league of travel ball, let's say 13U, and has never played travel ball before directly from a rec ball environment? Can you give some insight for that, please?
I can. So interestingly enough, we had the travel ball experience with my oldest son. He's now a freshman at Morehouse and he enjoyed baseball. I mean, he started at the age of 6, but unfortunately he didn't get the football genes that I was blessed with, where I was 6'2", 215, 220 pounds. He was, a little on the smaller side and it just didn't, manufacture the way that he would have liked to have the success that he wanted to have. So when we made the switch from, our local Capitol Hill Rec League baseball to travel ball, which is of course much more specialized, it's much faster paced. and the kids are incrementally better. It was a struggle. It was a struggle because he expected immediate success. He expected the ball to be lobbed in like a lollipop, and it was not.
Right.
I think parents really need to digest the level of, and I don't want to lose any fans when I say this, but the level of acumen for their kids. Because just because you're my kid doesn't mean you're going to be fantastic at the sport. And putting them in a position where they're at a level that they may not be ready for can be counterproductive tremendously. And if I lose the love of this game, as well, I'm sure you know, once I don't love it, it is not one that I'm going to rediscover. Not like basketball and football, because I can get better overnight. Baseball is not that animal. If you lose it 9 times out of 10, you're either going to get hurt or not want to be participating in it.
Absolutely. Totally agree with. Thank you for that. I really needed that.
Yes.
When you look at anything like when we say what's one thing like parents should never say to an umpire?
Wow. I only get one thing, huh?
Yeah, you get the one thing.
So I think the one
The
thing
main
that,
one. The main one.
yeah, the main one is when they make it personal, right? I can handle you missed that call because it happens every day. But when I get the you suck or, you're fat or, anything that makes it personal, that then takes me from that being an umpire to being a man. And now when you challenge me as a man, my response then is different than that of an umpire. So I just would ask parents, just try not to make it personal. Understand that we're human and we make mistakes. Don't make it personal. Please don't make it personal.
There you go. There you go. You
Yeah,
hear that, parents? Don't make it personal out there. That's going to make things worse for you and the team in the long
absolutely.
run.
Absolutely. We want to be as good as we can. Unfortunately, not all of us are the caliber of the major league. Well, some of the major league umpires aren't the caliber of major league umpires, but we're all just trying to advance the game.
Which
That's it.
excellent, excellent. Which one rule in baseball you would change immediately?
Man, it's interesting because now I think sportsmanship, we're trying to shine a light on sportsmanship, but I think the number of warnings that kids get is excessive. We try to legislate the game in such a way that the kids, are properly behaving, but we give them so many chances. Well, you got to warn them one time and then you warn them again and then you give a warning to both teams. If a kid has played an entire baseball season, they know what the warnings are and they know just how much they can get away with before you can legislate tossing them out of a ball game. So I would like us to be a little bit more strict, either at the plate conference or in, the fall before the season gears up, so that the kids' behavior can be exemplary. Now we know emotions run high at these games, especially when they're tightly contested, but throwing equipment, cussing at umpires, cussing at teammates, fighting in the dugout. Those are things that we shouldn't issue warnings about that because the safety now comes into play. So we need to be able to act accordingly when that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, here's a funny question. What do umpires notice immediately about a catcher?
Well, one of the things that I know, and they're good at this, but I notice immediately about a catcher is how they snatch the ball back into the strike zone, right? And hey, it's great coaching, but I would hope that the catchers understand that we see the ball coming at us. We don't see the ball being snatched back into the strike zone. But hey, that's the way that they're coached. That's the way that they're taught. And I probably, to some degree, it's not going to hurt you. It may help you. So, why stop doing it? But we certainly notice that ball being pulled back into the strike zone on errant throws. So, yes.
So let's talk about ageism. You know what I mean? Now, no, we got, hey man, we got umpires coming up to the field with scooters and
Yeah.
walkers and all
Yeah.
that, man. And the way they see the game, if they've been out there for, let's say, 4 games in one day, or let's say a 1 day tournament. I'm gonna just use a one
Right.
day tournament.
Right.
And they've been out there since 9 o'clock in the morning. It's going on 7 o'clock at night. Things get a little dicey in that championship game. What are your thoughts
Absolutely.
about should there be a cutoff for older umpires that probably should be at least behind the plate?
You're going to get me in trouble with this one, Coach Rod. I turned 53 this year and
He's trying to hide that one. He's trying to
I
hide
know.
that. Y'all hear that? That
I
man's volume
moved
went down. I can't even hear him anymore.
I move a whole lot slower now than I did at 23, coach. Trust and believe. You know, it's interesting because it's hard because we're hurting for umpires today, right? We are hurting to facilitate getting through an entire season with a two-man crew for every single game. So it would behoove us to try to, sit umpires down when we're hurting for them. So for an umpire that may be near retirement, in some cases, we're asking to delay that retirement just so we can make sure that we service all of the leagues that we have contracts with. Now, yes, if an umpire is older and he's having mobility issues, that's not going to benefit the game. But we're stuck. Do we try to get him or her to be positioned in a place where they can help us get through this season? Or do we ask them to sit down and then run the risk of not being able to staff the games properly? So it's difficult. Now, of course, if vision or mobility are getting to the point where they're hindering the product that we're trying to put on the field to get the games covered, then yeah, we've got to have a conversation about that. But in a situation, coach, where we're hurting for umpires, I'll be honest and transparent and say that we've yet to do that in our association because we just need the bodies. And there are just not enough people that are interested in working these games to be able to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I get it. I get it. I still got love for all of them. I don't care how old.
Yeah, yeah. And, we just got to do a good job of staffing to the point where you don't have an aging umpire working 4 games, or you do a game on and a game off just to make sure that we don't run them into the ground.
Absolutely. Let's talk about bang bang calls. How do you handle bang bang calls at first base? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so and it's funny that you bring that up because we had one of those last week. The biggest thing that I encourage all umpires to do is to give yourself a big enough window. Sometimes we want to get right up on top of the play, but the closer we are to the play, the less our periphery plays into that play. And you think if you back up away from it, you're not going to get as good a picture. It's just the opposite. If you back up away from it, you get a chance to see the ball come into the frame and get an entire picture. And then once you make that call, you got to live with it. You know, in our case, we have an opportunity if it's a two-man system where we can go to the plate guy and see if the foot was pulled or anything like that. But in the grand scheme of that's your call. And if you screw it up, you screw it up. Nobody's gonna come rescue you, especially on our level. We don't have instant replay. You got to get it right. And I think the biggest thing is backing away so you get a nice big window and can see the entire picture
Have you
and
ever
sell
made?
it
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
and sell it. You can't have a bang bang play and say safe. You got to get in there and make
Let
it
me tell you
known
something.
that you know.
I had an umpire. Let me tell you something. I had an umpire behind the plate, right? Make the nonverbal body language of calling a strike and called it a ball. Like he got up, he was like, "Oh, I didn't mean to call that."
Wow. Wow. And and to that point, and one of the things that we teach coaches, you can always delay your call. You can't be super fast when you make that call, especially ball strike safe out. Give yourself a beat. The timing is everything. Sometimes your brain and your eyes aren't synced up. So give them a chance to sync up and then make the call. It's much better to be right and slow than wrong and fast any day.
Right, right,
Man, the
right.
body language of a strike and called it a ball. Ooh, I
Sorry.
would be upset. You said he gave the body language of a
I mean,
strike,
he gave the body language, uh, Troy, like he literally
turned it and everything.
turned and said and stopped. He said, "I didn't say strike for a reason."
Yeah, it may be a little bit, may have been a little too fast, coach. You just gotta take it a little slower, back up a little bit, not be so rushed for sure.
Sorry about that.
Nah,
Yeah,
you're
man.
good.
So when we think about the understanding of the game and when we talk about certain calls, what would you say players need to look at as far as baseball IQ? What do you see a lot in reference to baseball IQ that can really help players out along with, let's say, and I'm using this as an example. If there's a pitcher and he's not pitching and he knows that the umpire may have a low strike zone, he may have
Right.
a high strike zone. Should a pitcher pitch to the umpire versus trying to pitch to their own script? Give me some insight
Absolutely.
about that.
Absolutely. 2 things on that. I think you certainly should pitch to the umpire because if you don't, you're gonna get frustrated, and then he's gonna see or she is gonna see that you're frustrated, and then at some point, you're gonna wind up making him or her feel like you're showing them up. So yes, pitching to their strength, I think is extremely important. But I think what's even more important, coach, is, and I don't know if this is lost in all of the programs, but certainly some, the kids don't know the rules, right? You've got kids that have a guy stealing from first to second without the ball and they're fake tagging. And then you tell them, son, do you realize that that is a level of instruction and you can wind up getting kicked out the ball game? First question, oh, I didn't know that. So, as much as we want to drill and make them take ground infield and outfield, they've got to learn some level. Now, of course, they don't need to know the rules like umpires do, but the better that they can become skilled at knowing what they can and can't do on the ball field, I think the better player they're going to become. And that's happening too many times. Kids don't know the rules and they don't, it appears that they're not trying to learn the rules, not at all levels, of course, but it's certainly at some.
Absolutely, absolutely. We had an instance that I can recall where we had a runner at first base and the ball was hit as a grounder for a double play.
Mhm.
That runner at first base did not slide into second on the, and let me tell you, this is at the end of the game, and they got both called out.
Yep, 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 yep.
And we pride our guys, and I need you to really express this to the parents out there. Our
Yes,
runners need to slide. It's like they don't want to get
absolutely,
uniforms dirty anymore. We
absolutely,
got detergent at the house.
absolutely,
Let's get
absolutely,
dirty. What are your thoughts
absolutely.
about let's get dirty?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the biggest thing is kids don't understand when you don't slide, you're going to eventually slow your speed down. When you slow your speed down, that could be the difference between safe and out. First and foremost, guys running down the first base and they want to, you know, try to be cute and dunk and dink. No, get your butt down. You got a guy coming to home plate. You don't want to slide. Anytime that you don't slide, you make the call that much easier for the umpire because they can see the entire picture. Get your butt down, make it tough, and more importantly, protect yourself. Because kids are taught to let that ball go. And if you're standing up and in my way, you're going to wind up getting one right in the face. Get down, protect yourself, and make the call tough. It is so much easier for me to tag a guy that's down on the ground than it is a guy that's running right at me. As a ball player, you made my job 100% more easy if you don't slide. So please get down, guys. That's why they make washing detergent. It's for our benefit to clean them uniform. And most of them playing on turf now, coach. So what you gonna do? You ain't getting dirty no way. Get down.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I
Get
love
down.
it.
Make
I
your
love
coach
it.
happy. That's right. Get down.
I love it. What's the transition you've seen as far as the level of pitching? I mean, you got guys throwing extremely hard nowadays,
Yeah.
man, and the batting average. And I was talking about this with Chris the other day. Do you remember when the batting average used to be an average of 275?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Now it has gone down to what, like 246?
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
insane the way this pitching is. What do you contribute these pitchers to, and how are they helping to literally impact and change the game within its entirety?
And I think one of the things that's happening a lot now is you've got kids that are attending camps. You've got kids that have specialized coaching. You've got kids that are involving themselves in a level of getting better to the point where it's showing up on the field. When I played, you went to practice from 3 to 5 and you went home and you played video games or did something different. These kids are going to practice and now they're going to a personal session with a coach and then they're going to sports specific training at a facility where it's nonstop. Yeah, we talk about it may be overuse or they may be doing too much, but it's transitioning on the field. At this point, look, I got a kid at Morehouse. He's a freshman. Morehouse is $55,000 a year for tuition, coach. So it would behoove me as a parent. Now, of course, I don't want to put them in a position where their arms going to fall off, but it would behoove me as a parent, if you love this sport, to get you as much training as possible so that you have an opportunity to play on the next level. And that's what these kids are doing, man. They are, we've got the DC State tournament coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
And we've got teams like Jackson Reed and Georgetown Prep and St. John's. These are some fantastic ball clubs, coach. And these kids are dynamite. And I'm telling you, each and every one of them either has a position specific coach, a clinic, or a camp that they attend on a regular. And it's making them some phenomenal athletes. Now, I just make sure that these kids are doing as much in the classroom as they are on the field so that you can marry the two to take you to the next level. But from just an athletic perspective, yeah, it's a whole lot different than it was in 1990 when I was playing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
These kids are good, man, and they're young. Even
Yes.
at the 13, 12 year, these kids, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Change
Absolutely.
ups, curveballs, it's amazing. It's wonderful to watch.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. And I
Absolutely.
think I probably got you to thank for that too, because you're a part of that machine that's getting these kids right. We look forward to it 100%.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm really
Yes,
big on, like you said, sports specific training and getting these kids right.
absolutely.
Eye candy to the recruiting eye. The
Yes,
moment they walk out the car and walk down that corridor with their
that's right.
equipment, they've
That's
got
right.
to look. You got to look the part.
That's
What are your
right.
thoughts about that as well?
I agree with that 100%. And I think the other piece that we're losing that, for whatever reason, is nutrition, right? You can be as wonderful as you want to be when it comes to, working out at your craft and practicing and getting good. But if you eat junk, you put junk in the body, what they say, junk in, junk's coming out. So I wish, and I know not everybody has access to the same things. But to the degree where, and our kids in the inner city, they love going to that carryout, man. They love getting them chicken wings and mumbo sauce. Now, I'm gonna be the first to tell you, I had me a couple chicken wings and mumbo sauces in my day, but understand that that's not going to sustain you when it comes to playing them double headers in July, right? You got to get some fruits, you got to get some vegetables, and as long as you can, in moderation, keep the sweets and the sodas and all that stuff, especially while you're in season, because the body's only going to do what you fuel it up to do. And if you fuel it up bad, it's going to fail you at some point. So please, kids, eat your vegetables, drink your milk, like your mom and dad say. Eat your vegetables. Trust me, they're going to help you before they hurt you.
Absolutely. Those
No
are very
doubt.
important complex carbohydrates, things of that nature.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So can you talk about the rule for the bat in reference
Yes.
to, I was watching, okay, first I was watching a high school game. I think it was on Black Cobra Media. Shout out to Black Cobra Media, by the way,
Hmm. Hmm.
youth prospects as well.
Yes.
They provide a lot of good content about baseball, but I saw a kid get ejected from a game, not ejected, but got called out, and his
Okay.
bat was suspended. He couldn't use his bat because there is certain pine tar on the bat. Can you
Yes.
describe exactly what goes on with that?
So first, the federation rule is that the bats have to be a BB Core bat 5.0. So that's the first thing that we look for. And as long as that marking is on the bat is good, we have no problem. The issue then becomes the maintenance of the bat. Is it wrapped from the knob to the handle perfectly without any interruption? A lot of kids will either wrap their bats themselves and they like to leave space in between the gaps because my fingers fit in the webbing a little bit better when it has space. Yeah, well, that might be the case, but that means that the bat now is not secure. So when you swing it, it'll fly out your hand and hit an umpire or catcher on your backswing. And then see the beauty of our area, we don't have much of an issue with the pine tar. The kids wear the gloves, they go with the bats, and it's probably because they don't have access to it. A few of the WCAC schools, that's the Catholic League here in the area, have access to it and will use that. And all we're looking for is a tacky stance that's not going to make the bat any slipperier from when they actually use it and swing the bat. And from all that we've seen so far, we've been in good shape. The kids also sometimes use the rosin, which I found to be a little bit weird, but they use the rosin that the pitchers use, to keep their hands dry and to keep the moisture from getting to the bat. And that's also a big help for us too, especially in the summer times when there's a lot of wet, moisture, a lot of sweat, and it makes holding on to that bat, that much more difficult. So as long as those two things, as long as the wrapping is good, it's a BB Core 5.0, and they use the pine tar that's not going to cause it to be slippier and more so tacky, we're good. We have no problem. And fortunately, we haven't had any incidents. Now, we got some kids that sling their bats, coach, but that's a whole different thing.
Oh my gosh, man. I had to tell the guy, listen, you can't throw the bat once you hit the
That's right.
ball. I mean,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, to
Yeah.
me, no disrespect to rec ball, but that's a rec ball habit right there.
Right. Right.
Throwing
Right.
that bat, you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
You
Right.
gotta clean that up. And umpires and these kids don't realize that umpires cannot stand
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
throw the bat, guys.
That's right.
Don't throw the bat after you hit the ball.
And I'll take it one step further. We've had some coaches that would, to try to correct the kid, will tell them, just take the bat with you. Okay, so now I got a kid that hits the ball into the gap. Now he's rounding first base with the bat, going
No.
into second base with the bat. And now the kid that's trying to make a tag on him screams, he's got a bat. I didn't want to get hit with it. How you legislate that, coach? The kid is
What?
carrying the bat to second base.
That's
I'm
insane.
like, my goodness. And it has happened in quite a few of my games. We don't
Wow.
want him to sling it, so just hold on to it. Yeah, well, coach, he can't run around the bases with a baseball bat. That's not going to help either.
Not at
So
all.
yeah, there's a lot of teaching on both sides that needs to be done to help these kids get right.
To wind things down, what would you say? What were some resources that parents can use or players can go to in reference to that they can have as far as insight, as far as about the game and umpiring, things of that nature?
Yeah, so I'm a big proponent of the National Federation of High School Sports. Not only legislates our baseball, but it also legislates all the other interscholastic sports. And they do a phenomenal job with tutoring videos and all types of access. I believe it's nfhs.org. And they do a phenomenal job getting coaches, umpires, and players educated on whatever sport that they choose. I mean, they've got swimming, basketball, baseball, football, archery, you name it. It's all on the site. And I think that's huge. Here in the city, what we do, we have a lot of organizations that will hold clinics. Now, of course, as you know as well as I do, clinics are a perfect way for kids to get hands-on training with coaches and people who are involved in the sport in their areas. Sometimes they come with a registration fee, but I think it's well worth it because, when you've got a kid that's trying to navigate a sport on his or her own, it always helps to have somebody, especially somebody that's, good at it, to give them pointers. So I think clinics are a phenomenal way to go about getting some education for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Well, parents and players, if you have tuned in, this is All-Star Insights with Troy Stewart, a national umpire. We thank you guys for tuning in. And again, this is All-Star Insights, sponsored by Tuckahoe Sports Incorporated and Kids on First. We appreciate you guys, and we're about to tune out here. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you, Mr. Stewart, for coming on the show.
Coach Rock, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, my friend.